talk about busking. So what is busking? This came up in a discussion recently in our banjo group on Patreon, and I thought, man, I could do at least one whole segment on this. So what is busking? Basically, it's going out on the street with your banjo. In this case, Copper's over here, my dog, digging a hole. Hopefully she's not making too much noise. But you go out and you take your banjo out on the street, and you sing and play with usually an empty. You lay your banjo case out at your feet, and people, with the idea that people will put money in there for you to play, or while you're playing, in appreciation of your playing. I never really used the term busking. That was a new term to me when I first started busking, when I was in my early 20s. Maybe was the first time I ever did it. In Boone, North Carolina, I think, was the first time I ever actually busked. But I didn't know the term, and I just called it, playing on the street for money or playing for tips. But busking is a good, quick way to say it. So that's basically all it is. So first thing you need to do, once you're to the point where it takes a lot of confidence to go out on the street and play in front of strangers and passersby, and it's a bit forward to lay out a case and expect people or ask people to put money in your case. So you better be good. Don't go out and into public and spew bad music, right? I wouldn't want you to do that. So get to a point, once you're there where you're comfortable with your playing, get out there and busk, and don't be afraid. Now, one way to build your confidence up is to know that the area where you're going to busk is a legal, socially acceptable place to busk, right? It's usually just like on the sidewalk in a busy downtown commercial area where there's lots of businesses, not a lot of people actually living there, but lots of people working and stuff. And it's usually it's not going to be legal in a crime-ridden area. Usually in lower crime areas and stuff, touristy areas, and maybe more gentrified downtowns and stuff. It'll actually be legal and even encouraged to busk. A lot of college towns encourage busking. Some don't. So do your research beforehand. A couple of places I know, around me in the South where you can, and it's, in Asheville, North Carolina, Boone, North Carolina, I already mentioned that. Those are two places where busking is pretty darn legal and pretty encouraged. In Atlanta, down in Little Five Points, you can busk down there. In Washington, D.C., in the metro train stations and stuff. And a lot of places in New York City you can busk. Washington Square Park, you can busk in any of the subways, I think. So check it out. That's some stuff there. I know in Savannah on River Street you can busk. I also know in places like Charleston and Chattanooga, busking is also legal, but it's more regulated. You have to sign up and stuff. So look into that too. So once you've done all your homework and you've done all your playing for a few years or whatever, you got to the point where you're good at playing, let's go out and busk, So, it's pretty easy to pick a spot. Like you'll figure that out, what spots are going to be good, what spots aren't. One thing you might not want to go anywhere for right off the bat where you have to compete with a lot of other noise. One thing I hate is it'll be a beautiful downtown somewhere, and I'd be like, man, I'd love to busk out here. Probably make a bunch of money off some of these people walking around. But the businesses are playing music, outdoor music on the loudspeakers in the side, blaring out into the sidewalk in front of their business. So that's a no-go. I'm not going to go compete with your damn sound system out there in front of your business. So I won't busk in a place like that. Also, if it's some of these downtowns have a lot of vehicle traffic, a lot of buses and stuff. If you're in an area where you have to compete with a lot of large buses or trucks, or shuttles or something going back and forth, that's something to consider. I don't know, the place where I made my most money was right on King Street in Boone, North Carolina, and there's lots of buses and trucks and lots of traffic that blazes through King Street, and a lot of times people couldn't even hear me playing. I don't think, but they still put money in my case, and we'll get to that on how you can accomplish things like that. Anyhow, so get out there and busk, One thing you're going to want to do is, I wouldn't recommend, just using your hat. A hat doesn't hold very much doesn't hold very much money, and it's easily blown off. It's also easily made off with by a thief. So I've never used a hat. I've always used a case. And one thing I used to do is a little gimmick. Any little thing you can do to subtly draw more attention to yourself. I used to carry my busking banjo down to King Street or whatever, wherever I was going to play, in an old beat-up guitar case. So I'd have a guitar case there, and I would even take it, and on the inside of the guitar case, I had my name painted in white letters, Clifton Hicks, on the guitar case. So if people saw me, they would know my name. The idea of that is that they could type me onto the internet and maybe send me, buy some of my CDs or something online. So that's what I would do. I would have a guitar case set up with my name painted inside, and to where they could see that, maybe right in front of me or something, prop it up somehow. And usually I would stand, so you need to get some kind of comfortable strap, I would use one a little bit thicker than this strap here. This is a little bit thin for standing for hours and playing and singing. But get you a comfortable strap. It's better to stand, though it's not vital that you stand. I've made lots of money busking while seated on a bench or something. So it's not vital, but it probably is a little bit better to stand up. So you're a little more engaging, and it looks a little more presentable if there's passersby and stuff, especially, because you can kind of walk around and mingle with people and look at them when you're singing and stuff, and like get their attention, and you're more often to get money that way, I would think. Put a little charm on people. So one thing they always, people hear old street performers talk about, you want to seed the pot, and that's true. You definitely, with your guitar case, I found it, I mean, I find the more money that would build up in my case, as my guitar case got thicker and thicker full of money, the more money and the faster it would fly in. I swear it seemed that way to me. So you never want to go out with an empty guitar case. And what's even just as bad as an empty case is going out there with a case that's just got some change in it, or maybe just $1 bill and some change. I would never do that. I would always have a bunch of $1 bills in my pocket, all wadded up, some of them folded, different shapes and stuff, and crumpled and stuff. And I would throw those $1, and I would basically lightly carpet the bottom of my whole case with a few $1 bills, and then I'd have a bunch of change in my other pocket, and I'd sprinkle change on top. And that's just so it's shiny and people can see it. It catches their eye, that shiny, crumpled up money and folded money fluttering in the breeze with that shiny change all over it. People will see that in your case. Also, the change keeps it to where your money won't blow away in the wind so easily. So sprinkle some change on top and have lots of money visible in your case. That will draw attention. And I swear, monkey see, monkey do. We humans, when you see a bunch of money in a case, and you see, yeah, this musician's good, he's singing, he's playing, he or she is good, that person is more apt to give another dollar, I think, than if the case is low or empty. So do that. That's a good tip from me that's worked well for me. The other thing is you want to have visual. I talked about sometimes they're not even going to be able to hear you. So it's great if you have something visual. This can be accomplished. I mean, a lot of people make money like if they have if they've got one leg or something, or if they've got somebody in their band is they wear funny clothes or something. That's one way to do it. I never did that. I always wear regular plain clothes. But I do this. Anyhow, I try to do as much showy stuff when I'm busking and stuff. Try to do a bunch of that showy stuff. And we've talked about that in other episodes. It's pretty simple. So banjo tricks are great to draw attention. Well, there go my dogs after something. That's one way to do it. Yeah, and the things, I usually would go out and I would go out any day in Boone, North Carolina, but I've also busked in Nashville and Asheville with some success, and probably a couple other places I can't even think of, but the most successful I ever was actually in Boone, North Carolina. I lived there for years when I was going to school. I would go out there any old time. The streets usually start picking up around 11 o'clock in most downtown areas. You start getting lunch people and stuff. You can go out early. People kind of think it's odd to see a busker out on the street before 11 o'clock. But they might still give you some money. But it's best to go out about 11 o'clock and get started and pick out a good spot and start playing. And sing, guys. I can't tell you how vital it is. Just as vital as playing well and having some kind of visual for people to look at, a visual trick, is singing. People love to hear that voice. I can't tell you how many people told me that they couldn't even hear me playing the banjo, but blocks away they heard a guy singing. And they were like, man, who's that singing? And they kept getting closer. And so they were thinking about me before I was even there, because the human voice, when you're really belting out singing and doing it as well as you can, doing a good job, they can hear you blocks away over the banjo. It also helps, guys, if you've got a resonator banjo. That's a great for busking. They're heavier, so it's going to be harder on your shoulder, but they're great for busking. I would definitely want a plastic head, steel strings if you're going to busk. The other thing, guys, is I would usually go out for about 4 hours. I'd be out there from about 11 or 12 to 4 or 5 o'clock. And I would just leave. I'd be out, that was what I would do. But after about 4 hours of playing, you start to get pretty loopy. Another thing, man, don't lock your knees if you're going to be out there standing for 4 hours. Keep your knees flexed a little bit, guys. That's a trick I learned in the Army. If you have to stand for 4 hours straight with your knees locked, a lot of people will just go down like a sack of potatoes after about hour 3 or so. So keep your knees bent. Stay hydrated. Drink water. If you're out in front of a bar or a restaurant or something, a lot of times they'd be happy to bring you a glass of water out to you if you're out there in front of their business. Yeah, busking. It's a lot of fun, guys. I first started busking, I think, when I was 23, 24 years old. The first time I traveled around, I went to Boone, North Carolina. It was the first place I ever went where it was legal. Most of my childhood, I always thought busking was kind of illegal, kind of like panhandling, so I didn't do it. But in Boone, there was lots of other kids doing it, and they were playing banjos and fiddles, and I remember looking around thinking, hell, I could play as good as these kids. So I came out and did it too, and lo and behold, I made a lot of money, usually in about 4 hours. If I cleared less than about $60, I'd say, in a 4-hour stretch. If it was less than 60, I considered it a bit of a disappointing afternoon. But anything about $60 or more in a 4-hour period, I was pretty happy with. That's the kind of money I would expect. Well, guys, this video is getting to be lengthy, and I want to talk about this some more. I love this subject, and busking is a lot of fun. I encourage you to get out and do it. Find a place where it's legal and safe to do it, and get out there. Even if you're not that great, you will get much better at singing and playing and performing if you go out and busk. All right, guys. Thanks for watching.